Millionaire heard laughter upstairs, froze. When he saw his maid dancing with his disabled daughter. The Mitchell estate stood on the edge of the countryside, surrounded by acres of green fields, tall oak trees and winding gravel paths. It was the kind of house people admired from afar, large windows glinting in the sunlight, wide porches with white columns, and a sweeping staircase inside that seemed to belong in a movie. To most, it was a symbol of wealth and comfort. But inside, the air often felt still, quiet, and almost heavy, as if laughter had long forgotten its way through the hallways. Robert Mitchell, the man who owned the estate, was a millionaire by anyone's definition. He had built his fortune through real estate and investments, working tirelessly for decades. At 58, he had everything people usually dream of: financial security, a sprawling home, and a name respected in business circles. Yet there was a loneliness in his eyes that no amount of success could erase. His life, though outwardly perfect, carried a silence he couldn't fill. Part of that silence came from his daughter, Emily. Emily Mitchell was 16, with soft brown hair and large, thoughtful eyes that always seemed to notice details others missed. She had been born with a disability that affected her mobility. Some days she used a wheelchair. Other days, when she felt stronger, she could walk a few steps with support. Despite her challenges, she had a quiet strength that showed in the way she smiled at the world. Robert loved his daughter deeply. But he struggled. He worried constantly about her future, her happiness, and whether she felt left out of the normal teenage life she deserved. He tried to provide her with everything: books, tutors, music lessons. But he couldn't give her what she seemed to miss the most: company. Emily's mother had passed away years earlier, and though Robert tried to fill both roles, his days were consumed by work. He told himself he worked so hard for her sake, but in truth, the long hours kept him from facing how much she needed him simply to be present. For a while, he thought the silence was normal, until the night he heard laughter. It was a Thursday evening, quiet as usual. Robert had returned late from a meeting in the city. The house was dimly lit, the grandfather clock ticking softly in the hallway. He loosened his tie, picked up a glass of water, and was heading toward his study when a sound stopped him in his tracks. Laughter. Not just any laughter. It was Emily's. His daughter rarely laughed these days. When she did, it was faint, polite, like she was humoring someone. But this was different. It was full, bright, and alive, echoing from upstairs as though sunlight had broken through a storm cloud. Robert froze. He set his glass down and listened again. There it was, a burst of joy followed by the soft sound of music drifting faintly through the air. Confused, he climbed the stairs slowly, careful not to make a sound. The closer he got, the clearer it became. Music from Emily's room. Something upbeat, cheerful, something he hadn't heard in the house for years. When he reached the doorway, he stopped. And that was when he saw it. Inside the room, Emily was holding the hands of Maria, the young maid who had been working at the estate for only a few months. Maria was twirling her gently, laughing as she guided her around the room in a kind of playful dance. Emily's wheelchair sat empty in the corner, forgotten for the moment. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes sparkling with life. Robert's breath caught in his chest. He hadn't seen Emily look so alive in years. Maria noticed him first. She froze mid-spin, her eyes wide with panic, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. But Emily clutched her hand and looked toward the door, her smile softening when she saw her father. "Dad," she said breathlessly, "we were just dancing." For a moment, Robert couldn't speak. He stood in the doorway, torn between surprise and something deeper, an ache he hadn't realized was there. Finally, he stepped inside. His voice was gentle but uncertain. "I didn't know you liked to dance, sweetheart." Emily's eyes lowered, almost shy. "I always liked music. Mom used to dance with me, but I didn't think I could anymore." Maria squeezed her hand. "She can, Mr. Mitchell. Maybe not like everyone else. But she feels the music, and that's what matters. There was no disrespect in Maria's tone, only warmth, and a kind of simple truth Robert hadn't dared to consider. He looked at his daughter again. The way her face glowed, the way her laughter still lingered in the air, it broke something open inside him. For years he had been so focused on what Emily couldn't do that he had forgotten to see what she still could. That night changed something. Instead of scolding Maria or retreating back to his study, Robert sat down in Emily's room. He asked her about the songs she liked, the ones that made her want to move. At first, she hesitated, as if unsure whether he was serious. But then she started naming them, old songs her mother used to play, newer ones she had discovered online, and even a few silly tunes Maria had shown her. Robert listened, really listened, and as the music played, he watched his daughter's face light up again. It became a routine after that. Every evening, Maria would help Emily with her homework, and afterward, they would play music. Sometimes they danced. Sometimes they sang into hairbrushes, pretending to be pop stars. Other times they just laughed until their sides hurt. At first, Robert watched from a distance, unsure of how to step into their world. But slowly, Emily began pulling him in. "Come on, Dad," she said one Friday evening, holding out her hand. "Just one dance." He shook his head, embarrassed. "Sweetheart, I don't know the first thing about dancing." Emily grinned. "Neither do I. That's the fun part." And so, awkwardly at first, Robert let himself be pulled into the little circle of joy his daughter and Maria had created. He stumbled, he laughed, and for the first time in years, the heavy silence of the estate began to lift. There were challenges, of course. Some nights, Emily's legs were too tired and she had to stay in her wheelchair. Other nights, Robert's work threatened to pull him away again. But the music had opened a door none of them wanted to close. Robert began rearranging his schedule. Meetings that once seemed urgent could wait until morning. He realized, with a pang of guilt, how much he had missed while chasing after success. It wasn't money that had brought his daughter's laughter back. It was time. It was presence. It was love expressed in the simplest ways, a hand to hold, a song to sing, a room filled with music instead of silence. And in Maria, he saw not just an employee, but someone who had given his daughter a gift no paycheck could measure: joy. One evening, weeks later, Robert found himself standing again outside Emily's room. The music was playing, the laughter ringing out just as before. But this time he didn't hesitate. He walked in, smiled at them both, and said, "What's the song tonight?" Emily's face lit up. "Something upbeat," she said. "You're dancing with us." Robert chuckled, setting his work papers aside. "Then I guess I have no choice." The three of them formed a small circle in the center of the room. The chandelier above cast a soft glow, the music filling every corner. And as they moved, awkward, uneven, but together, Robert felt something he hadn't in years. Home. Not the house, not the wealth, not the image of success, but the warmth of family, the sound of laughter, the kind of happiness that cannot be bought or sold. Later that night, after Emily had fallen asleep, Robert stood in the doorway for a long while, watching her breathe peacefully. Then he turned to Maria, who was quietly tidying up the room. "Maria," he said softly. She looked up, uncertain. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell?" "Thank you," he said simply, "for giving my daughter back her smile." Maria's eyes softened, and for once, she didn't know what to say. She only nodded, and in that silence, Robert realized how much one act of kindness could change a life. The house no longer felt heavy. The silence no longer felt empty. And in the heart of a millionaire who had once believed success meant everything, a new truth had taken root. The greatest wealth he would ever know was his daughter's laughter.